This is TWiT.
This is one of those situations where we've seen different companies try to tackle this in different ways. People themselves try to tackle it in different ways. It's all about trying to find a method to get folks to maybe take a break. Joining us today to talk about Meta's efforts in this field is Protocol's own Lizzy Lawrence. Welcome back to the show, Lizzy.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yes, we are so great. It's so great to get you here. And today we're talking about Instagram in particular. So Instagram is a long-lived app that, of course, was acquired by Meta, and since then has faced some different investigations, a number of lawsuits, all sorts of stuff. And in at least an outward attempt to appear as if they are trying to make a difference, they've been working on tools for a long time to help people limit their time on the platform. I was hoping you could kind of talk about the history of the changes that have taken place thus far before we dig into the most recent updates on the platform.
Absolutely. So, in the wake of the Facebook papers in late 2021, a large part of that was obviously the harms that Meta and its platforms can do to children. So a few months after that, or possibly immediately after that, Instagram paused their controversial Instagram Kids project, which was essentially going to be a separate Instagram app for kids, and for obvious reasons was pretty controversial. So after scrapping that, they instead decided to focus on working on parental supervision tools and time management tools in the existing Instagram app. So around November 2021, Adam Mosseri announced Take a Break, which is basically a nudge that encourages users to get off the app. That was announced as an opt-in feature in November, and it was for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, or 30 minutes. TechCrunch found that in the months in between, in the months when Take a Break was still opt-in, Instagram quietly removed the 10 and 20-minute options, which is interesting. Wow. And then in March, Instagram officially launched Take a Break, and as well as some other parental controls, including setting screen limits and parents getting notified about their kids' activity in the app.
Yeah, when we look at the long history of Instagram, back in my day, there was a time when the timeline on Instagram was a reverse chronological feed. I would see from the accounts that I followed, they would post that day and I could see the most recent thing and then scroll back and see all the day's posts. And at some point, Instagram changed it so that it would show you content based on some, behind the scenes algorithm, perhaps what you've liked before, what you pay attention to, but also what posts that you follow are getting the most attention, and then started injecting suggestions and all those kinds of things. And so this was one side of it. This was Instagram at a time seeing that it wanted more daily active users and seeing that the reverse chronological timeline ran contrary to that, because you'd open up Instagram at the beginning of the day or maybe midday, you'd see all of the Instagram posts, and then you'd open it up maybe at night and nobody had posted since then, so then you'd leave the app. So they wanted you to be in the app more often, so they started to roll out all of these changes to bring you back so that every time you opened up Instagram, there was new stuff to scroll through. And then they added these tools that are like, okay, now let's have you take a break. So we've successfully got you into the app. We've got you sort of locked in. Now we're trying to find a way to limit it. I mean, is the response here, is this a way for the company to protect itself from, in your opinion, is this a way for the company to protect itself from lawsuits? Is it the company, after a difference in pattern because they feel like it's their responsibility? I'm just curious, kind of the reactionary nature of these features, where in the long history we think this is coming from.
Right. So the timing makes you think. I mean, Meta is right now facing pressure from all sides to implement these kinds of features. I know in the last week, there were 8 lawsuits, and there's more to come, coming from lawyers representing parents across the country who are basically alleging that Meta is knowingly hooked kids on these platforms and then, harmed them with these algorithms and these rabbit holes leading to kind of toxic content. So, I mean, when I spoke to Instagram, they referenced some of, they participated in kind of anti-cyberbullying efforts, and they've had some features around that. That was in 2019. But it's clear that the biggest push has been recently, kind of amidst all of this, all of these concerns and pressure. So, I mean, when I asked Dana Gilbert, the head of global policy programs in Instagram, about the inherent incentive to keep as many users on the app for as long as possible, and how that's been, an essential part of their, business, in their business interest. And she said, well, it's also in our business interest to protect our users and, implement these tools to keep teens safe. So, it depends on who you ask.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's very clearly true. If you have a subset of users who are harmed by the platform and therefore leave the platform, then you suddenly don't have those users. And if you want, lifetime users, then it does make sense. So I can see the argument for sure that them working to improve this is about making it the best experience for the users. So what is because again, Instagram's kind of always updating things. What is the absolute latest update that's taken place to help people manage their time on the platform?
Right. So there are a bunch of sort of more incremental, smaller updates that they've done. But the two big ones are they've extended the take a break feature to Reels, TikTok's competitor basically with the scrolling videos. And they've partnered with creators who are, after 20 minutes of scrolling in Reels, a creator might pop up and introduce you to the take a break feature. So it's not actually the feature itself. It's more introducing the feature and encouraging users to turn the feature on. And then the other big one has to do with the algorithm and is really the feature update that's most directly addressing child safety advocates' concerns, which is in the Instagram Explore page, after a certain period of time, if a user is dwelling on one topic for what seems like an unhealthy or a long period of time, Instagram will nudge the user to switch to a different topic. And the topics exclude categories that are associated with appearance comparison, so like fitness content or celebrity content.
Okay. Now, this, of course, I've scrolled through TikTok, and after, looking through it for a little while, somebody will pop up, a person will pop up and say, hey, you might want to take a break. This is a good time to step by. So this seems like a really good opportunity, or Instagram saw that this was a really good idea and is trying to do that as well. But I'm curious, what do experts say about this method of using creators who, maybe are more in line with the kids and what the kids are saying? Does this actually work in practice? Do we know if it works in practice? Is there skepticism about whether this will work? And do people take breaks?
Yeah. So they're divided. I also, I've seen those take a break nudges pop up on my TikTok as well. Something interesting about that is I think some of these creators on TikTok became memes actually. And I saw a Reddit post kind of poking fun. Anecdotally in my own case, my own psychology, when those nudges on TikTok would show up, I was a little bit like, don't tell me what to do.
Right. Swipe past it. Totally. Please, I've got things to do, which is looking at TikTok even more.
Exactly. So, so I can't say that's everyone's case, but some of the experts I talked to did kind of mention the difficulty in an anti-Instagram message coming from Instagram itself, because there have been very successful public health campaigns. Megan Moreno, one of the experts I talked to, mentioned the Truth campaign, the anti-smoking vaping campaign, which sort of frames it as a rebellious thing to not vape or a cool thing to not vape. But that's not coming from vaping companies. It's like an entirely separate entity. So even though these are creators who are not Instagram, it's on Instagram. So it's a little difficult. It's unclear. We're not sure, I guess, how exactly teens will respond to this.
Yeah, that makes sense. In context, it is, your brain might associate that with the same thing. So to have it come from a different place entirely, maybe we'll sort of get past that filter of like that autonomy filter almost. But again, I'm sure that's research that folks have to do. Now, this is, of course, one factor, is this idea of being on Instagram for too long and maybe going down a rabbit hole. But the other big thing, and we've talked about it on this show in general before, is social media addiction. And there's a California law that is a bill that was aimed at sort of quelling social media addiction by giving parents the ability to sue social media companies for getting them addicted to these platforms. Has Instagram and Meta done anything to address the concerns of social media addiction, which I think it's important to separate in this context from the doom scrolling, which is one sort of underlying factor of addiction. Even if you're only on the platform for a few minutes instead of 30 minutes, in that time, that addiction cycle may take place. So what is Instagram doing about that, if anything, or do they have any kind of future goals with that?
Yeah. So in terms of addiction and getting at that root cause, it doesn't seem to me like these features are explicitly addressing that. I asked more specifically about that and about the algorithm kind of feeding addiction and the things they're thinking about with that. And they pointed me to this feature that I mentioned, which is pulling kids out of rabbit holes and introducing them to a new topic. So that is a really big concern. And another expert I reached out to also expressed, she said that for teens who are not already addicted, some of these features might be really effective. But if you're already addicted, it's a part of your routine to spend just copious amounts of time on Instagram. These features, it might not work as well, kind of for the reasons we mentioned, where, you want to keep scrolling. And if Instagram themselves is like, hey, maybe you should stop, that might be more of an incentive to actually continue. So that's definitely remains a big issue, and it'll be interesting to see how these lawsuits and pressure, explicitly mentioning addiction, will pressure Instagram to make changes to their platform.
And the last question I'll ask you, and you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. I'm curious kind of your own thoughts on digital time management tools. I know for me, there's a feature that Apple provides called Screen Time. And with Screen Time, you can set limits on individual apps, but also categories of apps and how much access you have to your device. And then at some point, then it will pop up and say, hey, you've used up all of your time. I ended up turning that feature off because it just got on my nerves. Is there any thoughts that you have on digital time management tools? Do they work for you?
Unfortunately, I'm a bit stubborn, so they don't really work for me. As a productivity reporter, I do like trying a bunch of things, and at least in the beginning, when if I turn on screen reminders or I used the Pomodoro method for a while, which is like you work and then which is very helpful. And it would turn on I would actually get notifications on when to stop work. But after a little bit, I get used to ignoring them, especially if they're kind of out of date or if I'm doing something really important, I need to stay in the zone. So I hate to say it, I haven't really figured it out, but if anyone watching please contact me, because I would love to be able to find time management tools that really my brain will accept.
Yeah. Contact me too, please, because we can all use those, it sounds like. Lizzy, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Of course, folks can head over to protocol.com to check out your work, but if they want to follow you online, where should they go to do that?
Yeah, they can email me at llawrence@protocol.com, and I'm on Twitter at LizzyLaw_. yeah, those are great ways to reach out to me.
Awesome. Thanks for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.